Here we are again, as we always are, in our reliable way at Spectrum Voices. Every Sunday we have a conversation in the drop-in, the 4x4, and that happens before the recording that we're making now. In the 4x4, it's a different format. It means that people drop in and have a talk, don't have their words taken and put into a later podcast. But here at this point, everybody has decided to include themselves, either by voice or text, to make a following podcast. It's Harry's Facebook page that is curated with a slant on the variety of the autistic experience. Before we move over to Harry's Facebook page, we talk about the progression of this unique way of getting your voice out there if you're autistic. Having a microphone that picks up your voice clearly, and having somebody take out anything that makes it more difficult for what you say to be heard in editing, and then have that placed out there for other people to hear, take inspiration from, learn from other autistic people. The professional group of people who involve themselves in autism, who are joining in our other streams in more serious ways, perhaps. The meeting we have here is an open meeting for people to come and bring their ideas to us as well. There's one thing I want to tell people about. We have been invited by Darren Bowring to contribute a news article to the International Journal for Positive Behaviour Support. And that could sound like quite a controversial thing to be doing. So I'm going to read a few little parts of the conversation and invite people to direct me in the way we go forward on this. Hi Jules, I attached an updated version of the article I'm proposing for the International Journal of Positive Behaviour Support's Neurodiversity edition next spring. Person and Person have now also contributed, and I have tried to construct it like an interview. So I've read through that and I'm quite happy with the work. Here's the bit that I'm requesting your information on, guys and girls, whatever. Professor Linda Bambara is guest editing this edition. She also wondered if you would be able to answer the following questions, or some of them, to include in the article, as she thinks these will be of interest. And the first one is, what motivated you to invite discussions amongst people who are perceived to have conflicting views, i.e. neurodivergent advocates and behaviourists? And I want to put the proposal that we answer it like this. When you discover autism as your identity in adulthood, you are exposed to a history of conflict between those who are the patients or subjects and the professionals who research and support them. From an outside perspective, the advocates appear traumatized and the professionals arrogant. one particular incident inspired me. At a conference, a spokesman of Autism Speak agreed to talk with our group and provided his contact details publicly, inviting the conversation. After the audience had gone away, there was no response to my further contacts. That person wanted to appear open to a conversation, but refused to have one. I saw a clear difference between the words expressed in public about having a conversation and the behaviour of the individual. So I looked for other opportunities and eventually found a few behaviourist voices. I'm going to go on mute now and see if there's anything people want to say to that.
That seems okay, Jules.
It's a good open history narrative of causality. Good to be clear and share the route to it.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. It's positive and honest, because that's exactly where it started, and it's inclusive as well. It's like we want to have the conversation, but others do not, but are willing to continue the conversation with the ones that are willing to do so, but are also aware that there's people out there that are pretending to open this conversation when they're not. So basically saying we're open, we're inclusive, but we're not fools. And I think that's a great way of putting that forward.
I'm wondering whether Justin, hi Justin over on Podbean there, could you text what you think? Is that the sort of thing that you're comfortable with, or do I need to modify it in a different way? Okay, Harry.
Yeah.
So, can I pass it over to you? And sorry, did somebody?
I think Morris wanted to speak.
No, I was going to make filling in air noises, but then you filled it in with something better.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you, mate. That was really helpful. So can I just pass over to you now, Harry? I think that's the end of the meeting for today, and I will try to remember at the end of the broadcast to introduce the meeting at the end, so then it goes into the meeting. So if you can remind me of that, that would really help. Thank you. Over to you, Harry.
Thanks, Jules. Good evening, everyone. This is Spectrum Voices Conversation, here every Sunday from 6pm to 7:30pm UK time, which is 1pm to 2:30pm Eastern Standard Time in the United States. We're on Podbean, and we're also on Facebook Live as well. This is Sunday the 29th of September 2024, and our live unmasked part of the broadcast, where we go through some of the Facebook posts that are shared and discussions that generate from that. So the first post is from Pandas Online. And Pandas Online is an author who promotes acceptance of neurodivergence and support. And what they've shared is from the Neurobears, part of the organisation project, is autistic strength. And under the autistic strength topic, it's about memory. memory for interesting facts. You may be able to absorb information and remember facts about things that interest you. It's a unique ability to store and recall information about our passions, and it's a remarkable autistic strength. It's not just about having a keen memory, it's about how certain interests light up our world and bring us autistic joy. What's others' thoughts?
One of those things folks have got to remember is some of us and not all of us, and the Rain Man point again. It's celebrate whatever profile of assets you've got. It'll be randomly different from other folks because it's then it's not just a limitation picture.
My experience is that there are different ways of absorbing information. So memory can be, it can come back on you later, if you see what I mean. You never knew you absorbed something, and yet it comes back. You can recall it. So if you check that out, there are non-standard ways of absorbing information, and I think that's part of the neurodivergent profile.
From my point of view, from what I've seen from this post, it's about if you're autistic and you have something you're really interested in, like a hobby, like a passion. It's like, certainly in my case, the memory really enjoys storing all this information, which may be worthwhile keeping or may not be useful at all in any way, but you enjoy the process anyway. You enjoy of not having that gift, but having that process. For instance, football teams, names of players, or if you a favourite writer, and some of the kind of a list of books or proses that they've written, or sometimes just random things that you just store in your head, like for some people, like types of trains, types of buses, types of building structures, and I'll say it again, types of lampposts, which was my passion in childhood anyway. Not in terms of the names, but certainly in terms of what they look like. But if it's passionate and it's something you enjoy, the memory is a great strength. And sometimes if it's a hobby, which is also a kind of subject that can go into like work or something more so-called serious, it's something good. But see if it's something else, like you're feeling that you're being forced to learn something, forced to remember certain things, like subjects you don't like or topics you don't like, the memory doesn't take it in. Sometimes you need to be told, more than twice, or you need to read something more than twice, or even more than that, for it to be stored. But if the autistic mind is relaxed and enjoying, it can take so much in and benefit from it in so many ways. But it all depends on how you feel and how the information is presented and if you're interested in it or not.
It makes me think of eating, consumption in all forms. It's like you can sometimes be forced to eat things you don't want to eat, and then taste is a factor as well. When people talk about passions and interests, it's a taste for something that you maybe end up needing, to a certain extent, because that makes you content and happy. It's part of your process of how you consume.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's about feeling that you have the option or having the freedom to do something. And what I like about this post is talking about a strength. And sometimes it might seem a bit patronising, it depends on some autistic people's experiences. But it just flips round a lot of these other posts that we do share and will share about the sort of more negative and more difficult kind of experiences that autistic people have. So I kind of like this sort of wording, although sometimes it may appear like, okay, it's a bit too, patronising or just a wee bit too ableist even. But it's just basically turning it on its head and saying that being autistic is not an absolute nightmare, and people have struggles and have, but it's not this kind of morbid place that sometimes it's portrayed out to be, to give people hope basically, depending who reads it.
Justin wants to say there are various different ways of absorbing information. Absorption. I think that fits with what we're saying about various things fitting or not.
The next post is from Life in an Autistic World. Say that again. The next post is from Life in an Autism World, and they are a writer, and the page is run by an autistic person, and also available on Instagram for more content as well. And what they've shared is a quote from Stephanie Kaufman, and it says, "Any other neurodivergent people find that you react." I'll say that again. Any other neurodivergent people find that you underreact to things you're expected to have a big response to, like death, breakups, terrible news, and overreact to things you're expected to not get upset about. What's people's thoughts on that?
I tend to get a form of dread or anxiety with big events, especially anticipating them if they're long processes. And on a personal level, sometimes if you don't have a reaction or I don't have a reaction, it can be perhaps a form of avoidance. But I do appreciate that it is possible that these things have less of an impact on some people. But yeah, you can overreact to trivial things, yeah.
Folks have seen things as overreactions that I don't see as them. That either to do with fairness of immediate situations, to do with the things missed in life that aren't the some median average to want to have in your life anyway. So, but there's no personal identity matters, but folks, neurotypicals in the learned way of not not thinking personally distinctive, thinking fitting in, don't think it matters, and then they think you're overreacting. And is it? Whereas you can't pour out sort of big cascade of emotion ritually to some well understood news that I might just be more the way to absorb internally. I remember my mum being offended once because I didn't spontaneously ask after the health of someone we knew when there was nothing. Although he was very ill, there was nothing new to tell me, or else she'd have told me without me needing to ask. Therefore, why did I need to ask?
I'm 59, and I have been in situations where people have lent on me for comfort, bereavements, that kind of thing. And one of the things that people appreciate about it is my calmness and my failure to react, to bounce off what's normal, to follow what everybody else is doing at the time. And if that's running around like headless chicken and I'm quiet in the middle of it, that sometimes seems like an advantage to people. But from the outside, I believe that people see that as rather cold as well. You know, calmness in one situation, cold in another. And then there's the other side of that, and it's the absolute opposite extreme of things overwhelming me. Something makes me suddenly fiercely angry, and it subsides very quickly, which I believe is also something I observe in other autistic people. Outbursts and then calm. The way we load this in and the amount of time we're in, percentage we're in one or the other, is different to the pattern that non-autistic people live their lives. They live in a different, much more network connected, infected, the same behaviour being copied from one person to another way than us.
Jules, in situations of grief, do you feel that we are dealing with the moment, as it were? Because I've felt that sometimes. It's like, this is just too much, but I have to deal with what is happening to me right now. And so therefore, it can appear quite cold. It's like nothing's happening. But internally it is, but it's just I'm dealing with an immediacy that is quite intense, and I have to cope. And I think that's part of autism, this thing of an intense relation with the environment. And so therefore, when something that is important to you personally, but is small to someone else, triggers, it triggers because that was very important to your immediate environment. I hope that makes sense.
To me, it makes perfect sense. It's a gut, visceral reaction, which means it seems extreme to people. And I know through various different stages of my life, I've spent a lot of time masking or suppressing or keeping that in a kind of manageable proportion that makes me feel in control of it in certain situations. But that was voluntary-ish at the time. but it's not something I volunteer for nowadays so much, you know.
Just in the overreacting to things, making a mountain out of a molehill. A molehill, I suppose. Pensive-looking smiley. Maybe it's not a molehill.
People react like, from what I've learned of what I've seen in life, and what, from my perception, people deal individuals deal with different things in different ways, like dealing with grief, dealing with breakup relationships, dealing with you know getting bullied, or dealing with all different, sometimes even dealing with trivial things. I get wound up by adverts on the television. I'm saying the television, but mostly a lot of it's on YouTube and all that now. We niggly daft things. I don't rant and rave, but I certainly kind of feel, a fume within me. But in terms of kind of grief and, it's a bit more subdued because you're trying to keep a calm demeanour around other people. And you want to have a coping mechanism within yourself because you don't want to break down. Because you feel if you break down, it'll be hard to kind of, I know it's the word stabilise is a bit brutal, but to balance yourself again. But I think that different people do things in different ways, and it just seems to be this kind of societal so-called rule that you must cry at this certain time, you must get angry at this certain time, you must be happy at this certain time, and you must behave accordingly with all these scenarios and situations, which we all know people have different ways of dealing with things.
I want to choose my own time when I express myself emotionally. I want to choose my own time when I express myself logically. I want to express myself in control when it matters, when it's helpful, when it's organising things that are around a death or something, to give alternatives to make the present better and the future better. I also don't want to have to fit, like you say, with other people's expectations of how I should do things at different times. I want me to have the option of getting into the emotions a bit, standing back for a little bit, not letting them run away with things, and process things as I have learnt suits me over the years. I think, unfortunately, uh, it would benefit most of us in society if these big things which we're trying to process, whether it be a death or a divorce or something awful in your life, that there was more latitude for your own personal way of doing it rather than having it imposed from other people across society, not just autistic people. There does seem like a very big imposition of what is formally correct that is harmful to everybody.
Yeah, very briefly, I think that's why social or public ceremonies are resisted as that, as you say, of an imposition. So it's felt, yeah. I've often felt that.
I often don't want people in my face about things that they know are big to me because it's, a thing like a death, but I don't want them in my face about it.
The next post is a new one that I've shared from Asking Autistics, who are a podcast and described as autistic podcast by autistic people. And what they've shared is about alexithymia. And the picture, they've shared that picture, and it's kind of picture and kind of describing what I'm about to read, with pictures and graphs, etc. In a nice sort of readable and colourful way. So alexithymia, it says difficulty identifying feelings, difficulty identifying emotions, hard to understand others' reactions, and struggle to display accurate expressions. What's other people's thoughts on this description?
I've heard people use this phrase, but I don't know too much about it, so I'll hang back a bit and listen.
Well, I don't think I knew before this just included others' reactions. I thought it was a sort of thing about your own senses.
I'm unsure whether it's related or not, but what I do know about myself is I find it hard to channel emotions. Channel moods in terms of happiness, sadness, grief, just like we've just been speaking before in different ways. I don't know if that relates to that particular condition or word or description, whatever the thing is trying to portray. But I found it was kind of interesting because I identified with it in a way. I just wondered if it kind of affected about others. But looking back on it, it gives examples. It says difficulty identifying feelings, like someone been asking how you feeling today, and then you're saying I have no idea. Someone being congratulated for an achievement, and someone is asking why do they feel sad at that particular moment. And another one saying somebody watching a horror film, but they're finding it so funny, or they're saying it's so funny. So that's the sort of examples it's sort of kind of giving. And then the difficulty identifying emotions, it's like a sort of wheel of fortune sort of thing. It's like it just doesn't know how to identify happiness or sadness and the other emotions that people go through. I'm just kind of wondering how that identifies with autism.
This might be a classic example, but can anybody do any of this? Is most of this just not, I think there's like preconceived ideas of these things that we're supposed to like fulfill. So again, maybe this is a classic example of it that I'm expressing here, but I've just always, I've never found anybody different from myself in reaction to this. I think it's a fluid thing. But again, maybe I'm finding it difficult to express myself here.
I don't know how I feel about a day if I've not decided. The things you're supposed to have a default feeling.
I think there's a slur here. There's a slur about the nature of autistic people that is passed through the literature, and it's a rotten thing that's in there. This belief that autistic people are unable by nature to be able to correctly express their feelings in given circumstances and correctly identify their feelings in given circumstances. And it comes about because of the misunderstanding in communication between autistic people and non-autistic people. So the way it's described after filtering through a different kind of language set, it allows us to have this slur against us that we're unfeeling and unable to identify our emotions, which works very much against us and allows people to have othering feelings to us and creates prejudices about us. Having said that, in its real form, I believe there is a version of a human being that finds it impossible to inhabit feelings and emotions in the same way as other human beings. But the way it's sprinkled over autism is unacceptable. It keeps us down and reduces our self-esteem unnecessarily.
Measures by the wrong bar for common sense, I suppose, for everyone. And as we were just talking about overreacting or being perceived to, that perception is at least at the presence of emotions, and they're often unfeeling when they take things as overreactions. Because when we're not in all the academic rooms where the papers are being written on this to remind them of that.
The next post is from Cara Keter, Autistic Educator. Described as an educational consultant and an autistic educator with a passion for helping teachers and families support autistic children. And what Cara says is, I've been in a constant state of overwhelm this week. But today I wore my STEM and Let STEM shirt to work, and multiple people celebrated and complimented it. Someone told me today how much I've helped them better understand neurodiversity. Someone sought me out for advice on how to support their child as they move through the identification diagnosis process. One of my instructors commented that my depth of reflection as a practitioner impressed her. I shared a fixation with someone who not only accepted it without judgment, but found a way to celebrate it. So I'm focusing on these things and finding some joy and gratitude tonight. And I'll worry about tomorrow. The shirt credit goes to the neurodivergent teacher, which she wears in the picture itself. What's other thoughts on this? what I have seen myself in different posts, different mediums, different. Give an example of people with neurodivergent, autistic, is like the stim, the promotion of stimming, the positivity of the stimming action, and how it shouldn't be ridiculed or shouldn't be discouraged because it's a recovery or a reset sort of mode for many autistic neurodiverse people. So I'm just wondering if that connects with anyone else. Even wearing a t-shirt saying "stim" and "let's stim."
I'm looking forward to when STEM is a household word, so that the t-shirt will be understood and resonate outside the already familiar circles. I suppose anything pictorial on it would be double-edged, because if you drew something to illustrate, so other folks could take it as caricatures or react negatively. So that's a bit of the language puzzle, how to speed up recognition of what STEM is.
I don't think I formalise my stimming with a need of a t-shirt or a stim toy or anything. I just kind of do the normal things people do to stim, repetitive movements, chewing the end of a pencil, rocking in a chair. I don't know. Maybe people understanding that the reason people do these things is not because of these default ideas that they have, that they're shifty or that they're in some kind of Freudian way trying to leak out or deflect an emotion that isn't necessarily coming out in their words or actions. It's, if we could get it out there that people do repetitive things to self-stimulate for lots of other reasons and stop using them as some kind of cod psychology, it would be good.
The next post is from Rosie Weldon's Autistic Life, which is a personal blog described as "I'm an autistic adult that shares my life openly and honestly online." And Rosie has shared a quote. I think a quote that we'd all agree with. "Fix the environment, not the person." And when I see that sort of quote, it always takes me back to the school environment, and it's something it's constantly discussed because of how school environments are, and how if you're not within that so-called environment, if you're not towing the line, the person is the problem rather than the environment that you are experiencing in. What's others' thoughts?
Positive environment support. Similar thing to life coaching. history in so many words. Which side the problem's placed. As I suppose you go back a long way into history, then environments were quite hard to change much, both from a power point of view and the dominance of the nature equilibrium. So the balance of words has had to, well, has still got to us, hasn't yet caught up with that. The recent Autiscape talk floated a term of applied needs analysis as an alternative to behaviorism. Mind, even needs can have some double-edgedness about how it's interpreted. So environment is more the whole way. Right now, the whole world knows it needs to fix its environment.
Yeah, but it's not just autism, is it? You can say it for a lot of things. It's like the person or people get blamed if not fitting in with an environment which may not be suitable in the first place. So that is a good point. The next post is from AUDHD Surplus, and it's sharing a quote from themselves, which is saying that life is strange, and what they mean is, I'm an AUDHDer. I love impulsive predictability, and I thrive best while following a relaxed and rigid routine as long as it's chaotic, dangerous, and somewhat familiar. Life is strange.
Good old ambiguity.
It just shows you how life is strange, and a lot of what life is not just coping, not just living, but also trying to balance things out. Because a lot of the time, a lot of it just seems like contradictory. Just depending on your mood, I suppose. So it's just a lot of stuff that AUDHD Surplus share is a lot of these sort of kind of humorous sort of examples of how complicated and strange life can be, and it's always nice to share that.
Impulsive predictability could be called statistical range. It's like the management of accident rates or prediction of rates of sales of things in shops. Something that's a framework, enough of a framework to be familiar and safe, but has a lot of variance within it. Scope for interests. Something that can adapt itself, something that's not a dinosaur. In this case, it's a healthy view. Justin, back on the last topic, schooling, the environment situation. Another situation is the workplace environment. Life, strange school and workplace. Actually, life is strange fits for this one too.
I think there is such a thing as a fluid structure, but I'm getting a sense from this comment that there's some kind of stimulation in this person's experience from this realization they're having.
Is it a good feeling on the adaptedness to the range and the sort of multiple layered routines being well built up, well achieved. Well riding of these waves.
Yeah, riding the waves, it's exciting.
The next post is from the Autistic Teacher, and it's another quote. I think I'm sharing a lot of quotes this evening. But going back to the Autistic Teacher is a public figure, autistic and proud, sharing insight and understanding to help the autistic community, based in the UK. And what this quote basically says is, find people who make you feel that it's okay to be who you are. Straight to the point. But what's other thoughts on that particular quote?
They're hard to find and it takes bloody time. Especially looking at life before knowing of the autistic scene.
That certainly is true. I mean, I get that Justin, that is right, but saying that it's a hard thing to find, but it is true. There's just too many scenarios, too many situations for people who are amongst people, and this includes family, that they may not feel that being who they are, it's going to be accepted. It's like you need to be in this environment where you feel safe to act, and even just, it's not just about acting, it's not just about talking, it's about how you sit down, how you gesture, and if you do talk, it's about not just how you talk it in terms of the way you talk in terms of words, but in terms of the sound, how loud you speak, how low you speak, how long it takes for you to process words, to process sentences, people having a chance to speak at all. So I totally agree with that. But as Morris says, it's not easy to find most of the time, and you're very lucky when you do find it because it is very beneficial. And I have been very lucky, you know, for this scenario, not just here, of course, but amongst friends and family.
I think if you find a way to allow yourself, or to be allowed to be who you are, who you want to be, how to express yourself, and not necessarily be confident in that, but be content with it. People will respond. Not all people, but I think the people that are suggested in this quote, find people who make you feel it's okay to be who you are. Those people will find you to a certain extent. Again, you have to be out and about, you have to interact, and someone with social anxiety, I've had issues with that, but I've also had experiences where being out and about and being content being who I am, I've met good people, as it were. So I'll leave it at that.
I think for an awful lot of us, getting out and about is quite high on the ladder from the position they feel at the moment socially, out there isolated. And I know that, and I'm glad this is the case, that every time I put a podcast out there with the words of fellow autistic people, there are people that make sure that they download it and they listen to it, and it's part of their background of how they feel being autistic. And just listening at that stage is a very good way of enabling somebody to move further along the ladder up towards something that gets towards, as you call it, getting out and about. And anybody out there who is at that stage where they're, just listening and feeling better about some things because they hear what we say, feel free at any point to move slightly closer to emailing us, texting us, joining us, and making it a bigger part of your life.
Just in different wavelengths, the autistic teacher, including family members, getting out and about and finding the right type of people to hang out with.
I mean, going back a bit, I was diagnosed with autism in 17, and because I was still living at home, and because of the way the situation of why I was diagnosed in the first place, because it was through mental health crisis. I feel even now I was lucky enough at the time to be referred to what was called the autistic, say again, I would refer to Strathclyde Autistic Society in Glasgow, amongst other things. And through that, as I've mentioned in other broadcasts, is the social groups. And through them, they felt it's safe spaces, and it's the same as anything else. You don't get on with everybody, and some people's behaviours you're thinking, well, I don't know, but there's always at least one person I feel that you connect with, that you feel comfortable with and can identify with. And so much so that you meet them outside that particular setting, because as good as the groups are, they're still kind of set up in a certain way. They're set up by people that are autistic. It's like organisation, charity thing. So if you go out and you find someone and they come to your home, or you go somewhere you both find comfortable, and you sort of go through kind of similarities and discuss experiences and just feel comfortable and just talking, and not just talking but listening, and listening to someone else's experience, especially if it connects with you, and even if it doesn't, it just feels so comfortable, and something I can definitely identify with. So it's really important that you don't just find people who make you feel that it's okay to be who you are, but it's also, I find important to feel that me, myself, make other people comfortable of who they are as well. So it's a mutual thing, and it makes it much a mutual and comfortable environment. But as has been said before, it's not easy, but it can happen. And I mean, we do it here ourselves, as Jules has explained, in a certain kind of medium, a certain kind of platform. So it is out there, but it isn't easy for a lot of people. But the thing is saying it is out there, and saying that you but it's basically saying don't feel bad about yourself for being who you are, because some people don't accept you, or you feel that that's not the case. It's like, find someone if you can that does, and don't feel bad for being who you are, rather than feeling that making excuses of being who you are for the sake and the benefit for other people. The next post I've moved on to is from Autistic Typing. And Autistic Typing is a community, Turtle Island Induous caregiver and care worker, writer, speaker, advocate. And what they're saying is, I'm exhausted of self-advocacy. I should be listened to and believed. I should not have to prove. I know myself, my experiences, works. I am exhausted of self-advocacy. I should be listened to and believed. I should not have to prove. I know myself, my experiences, what works for me, what does not work for me, and when I need ideas or help, I ask. I should not need to run myself into the ground just to be believed. What's others' thoughts on this?
Many groups are not alone in that, but it's a historical struggle. Goes on, takes a long time. Having someone to ask or not having someone to ask. means of getting to having someone to ask.
It's something I've heard so many times before. It's like some people need to run themselves into the ground before something is noticed, realised, or, as I said before, believed. It should be taken a lot at face value what someone says. I know it's not as simple as that. People can't be wrong and people can't be unreasonable, but it seems there's a lot of people out there that are really trying their hardest and really tiring themselves out just for the sake of being listened to and feeling they're not being taken seriously enough. And that is a hard thing for people to take, especially if it's rejection after rejection after rejection. Maybe not people not rejecting people's kind of opinions or fears or whatever else in a bad way, but they're doing it regardless, and that does hurt and affect people in a hard and harsh way, long term as well.
Am I slightly misreading this here in that this is asking to be agreed with? Because you can't always be agreed with. I think the best option is when you have a dialogue and maybe an agreed or an agreement between 2 points of view. But I don't know. Am I maybe misreading this?
I wouldn't say so. I would say you're giving an opinion. I mean, that's the reason why such things are shared. Because I, while sharing it, don't know the full background. But what I do know, or what I do think I know, should I say, is that many people feel like the way those words are being expressed, they'll feel like they have to, it has to be like justification from themselves rather than someone saying that they should be believed and that's they are the be all and end all of what should be listened to and not.
I think it's a valid expression that when you're in a position that you have to continually self advocate to gain any kind of autonomy or self expression over your position, especially if you're somebody who doesn't use your voice or uses different kinds of techniques for communication. It it's weary making because you're banging your head up against a brick wall, and that's what it feels, and that's what's being expressed.
The next post is from Neurodiverse Journeys, who's an author, a neurodivergent author, consultant, advocate, and coach, autistic ADHD PDA parent to ND children. And what they've shared is something they came across at the Royal United Hospitals in Bath, England, UK. And it's a thing called reasonable adjustments. And what they've shared is it's like an official thing, and it's NHS, National Health Service based thing, and it says on the paper, I am autistic. Please consider reasonable adjustments to help me cope. And the reasonable adjustment says, And it says autism is a spectrum condition and everybody's experience of it is unique, and reasonable adjustments should reflect this. But it also says, has the patient got an autism passport? What does the patient feel would be helpful? And have you looked at the reasonable adjustment staff guide? Has anyone heard of this?
We've long heard of the abstract right to reasonable adjustments, and I've also not heard of this system of accessing them. Before anyone thinks that a sort of blooming entitlement piece of paper is an easy solution, how long a process will it be to get one, and what happens in the meantime? That could be the way of avoiding it for a while and shelving the question by the appearance of meeting the need by being in process. I mean, if you're even potentially got it before they've taken years to actually have, you already need the adjustments because you've already in fact got it. Assuming it turns out you have.
I've blown hot and cold on the concept of being a card-carrying autistic at different times. I worked out a way of making it so that we could have autistic radio alert cards which had a link bringing up a web page that kind of gave some kind of idea of autism, some links, some dealing with immediate emergency kind of ideas like not restraining people, that kind of thing. And even though it's possible to quite cheaply produce something like that, even with a photograph of the person, like a real ID card for a conference or something like that, but printed as a plastic card, like a credit card, I couldn't come to mind on whether it was a good idea to be a card-carrying autistic or not.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, there's this, you know, you want things to be in place to help anybody that feel that, you know, things are adjusted, things are there in place if you require it. But sometimes people feel that they have to do this sort of entitlement sort of approach. Like, I'm entitled for this, I'm entitled for that, so that they would be helped or things would be adjusted to help them, you know, in a serious way. Because the word entitlement, certainly in recent times in the language, people are turning against that, saying that there's so many people out there saying they're entitled that the entitlement has become such a negative word as well. And the word adjustment, even in many ways, has become a negative word because there's some people out there probably ignorant, probably not realising, you know, how different people can be, saying, why do things need to be adjusted for people? Why can't people all be treated the same? You know, that sort of naive, sometimes even probably just prejudice sort of approach, which wouldn't work for anyone, never mind anyone who's autistic.
I have to say that I think organisations should realise the things that are good adjustments for autistic people and neurodivergent people are also productivity boosters to the rest of your staff, making things a little bit more flexible so they have control over their own lives makes them more productive. making them able to be isolated from noise at different times when they're concentrating on different parts is productive. All the things that are good ideas as adjustments for autistic people make non-autistic people productive, as well as giving you a new group of staff members in this time where there's a shortage of skills, there's a shortage of people who put their head down and get on with things and are enjoying being there. We're a resource. It shouldn't be adjustments just for us. It should be all your staff, and use your assets correctly as business people.
Yeah, hopefully there will come a day when things like this won't be needed.
It's good to have an instant sort of message to clinch a situation with, but it's bad to be, required to have something to show to prove a thing, but puts it into getting lost and long process to obtain. It's the power side of the reasonable adjustments being reasonable for everyone, as we've just been saying. That's even if someone it's a difficult word there without being negative. Even if someone for whom the autistic is looked at as a possibility, but ends up reckoning not to be it, the very fact of the possibility will have shown some issues that were reasonable to ease life around in tandem with the easing as part of autism where that's the case. And it's not productive to make it a fight to prove for a few people against others. It's to approach from the side of easing a message, and only do when it does that.
Here's a way something could work. If you were a card carrying autistic, on one side of the card it could have the photograph, and it could have just that. No name, no address, just your photograph. And next to it, a QR code that takes people to a website. And that website could be unique to you. So you would have a set of pages that explain that if you're in custody as a police person, that you have these certain rights because you come under a protected this or that. Or another tab that leads you on to a piece of information about people panicking in with needles, or something to do with health, or anything else that, and it would all be just on your card. Somebody could flash their mobile phone up at it, and this is all information that is there that you have chosen to share. based on, a questionnaire that we could produce of things that you think would be helpful in different circumstances. That's how it could work. And then it could be either sold out or distributed through different charities who thought it was a good idea. And as I said, every single person's card would be unique with their face on it, and also the pages that came up when it was scanned would be unique to them as well.
I wish there'd been a bit more. Oh, sorry.
You have to watch out about medical records data with this.
I'm thinking, I wish they'd been a bit more specific about how they just came across these. Like, were they just lying around, or were they provided with it because of a medical record? Or did they request it themselves and were given it? And I'm just a bit vague about this. But yeah, any visit to the hospital's not nice, but if you feel like it might be a bit high pressure for you, it might be good to have something like this as some kind of help. But yeah, I'm with you on the medical record thing.
Exactly. I don't think it should be in any way linked to official records. I think it should just be statements that the person holding the card, when they don't feel able to communicate very well with the scary authorities around them, has put down things that they need to know that they might not be able to express easily. So things that they have decided a doctor might want to know about them, or a policeman, or a health medication person, or whatever.
It appears from the post itself as someone who came across this rather than having the background of why they're there in the first place. There's obviously another story to this. In case that's, yeah, but just says just came across these at Bath Royal United Hospitals. So yeah, it's came from somewhere. Maybe a bad experience from an autistic person, or maybe working with a specific forum or group that it's come across that's how that's a sort of kind of standard or the way forward to make things easier for both the autistic people, the autistic patient, and the staff that are there to help them.
Some of the other photos on that site are relating to a dental hospital visit, so maybe that's a connection.
Yeah, I think this is an attempt by hospital trust, people in that, to make it inclusive for autistic people going through dental, and also giving them some kind of chit to say, flagging us up, a little bit like going through an airport with a sunshine lanyard, and they're trying to reach out to try and make something work, you know.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Obviously, all ideas and all systems aren't perfect, but any way forward is a way forward. As long as it's not backwards, as sometimes people may feel. And then there's been talk about, obviously, the thing about autism is not everybody wants to identify that unless they really need to. Specifically if it's in a medical setting, because in the medical setting, in terms of autism, is a frightening place for many people's experiences, because of how autism has been represented or treated in the past.
If you go to the post, there's 17 comments, so there's a bit of reading to be done into this. Somebody's referring to it as an autism passport. Weird.
Yeah, exactly. I think something along the lines I just laid out would be generally more useful if it was a national scheme run by a charity like Autistic Association. But I think we'd have to think about organising it. Um, I'm also interested in another um, post from Neurodiverse Journeys. It's a page that we follow and link to often, and it says, "My book is out, the Unmasking Workbook for Autistic Adults, available at autistic Amazon.com, and no doubt nicer places to get your thing from than other than that if you go directly to Jessica Payno's website. So if you can avoid doing it through Amazon and go it through Jessica directly, good for you."
Well, thank you. That was a great discussion tonight, and thanks, Raymond, for sharing that link. And thanks, Julian, for sharing that information as well. So, yeah, it's been a great discussion again tonight. We went through a lot, and we actually done a lot of quotes as well, a lot of inspirational quotes that generated so much discussion as well as people's works and experiences. So that's a Spectrum Voices conversation. Here, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. UK time, which is 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, United States. So thanks again for joining us, and over to Julie.
Well, this is the part of the show after everyone has moved on from the Facebook pages to have our open meeting and discuss the sort of things that we're doing here in public at autisticradio.com and also autisticassociation.org, the charity that works alongside autisticradio.com to get autistic voices out there. Today, the things that I'd like to bring up, I'll start with. No, okay. So the main thing I'd like to talk about this week is